Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another Indigenous Wisdom for the Earth series. Today, I am with Chantal Wainer of Ecopower International Initiative. She's the president of this project. Her husband, Jessie Wainer, he's the chief operations officer, and Jeremy Schranz, he's the vice president. A little bit about Ecopower International. They are committed to combating global warming, climate change, and world food security through the regenerative restoration and preservation of rainforests. Their aim is to put an immediate stop to the consumption of precious wood as a fuel source, which is a major contributing factor for the decline of our rainforests. And together, socially and economically, they hope to empower and liberate Indigenous populations. They are currently working together with 32 Indigenous communities in the Bosawas Biosphere Reserve in Central America. It is one of the largest continuous forests in Latin America, and it's a rich landscape with over 21 different ecosystem types and home to 13% of the known species worldwide, including very rare and endangered species. So I'd love to go ahead and start. If you could introduce yourself, Chantal, and maybe Jessie and Jeremy could do a little introduction, then tell us about what it's like to be working in the biosphere that you're in.
Hi, Tara. Thank you very much for inviting us
to your show.
to the show.
Chantal will be more happy to speak Spanish, and therefore I will act as a translator. Again, I'm Jessie, her husband, and Jeremy, a good friend of ours and obviously business partner. We've been together for many, many years. So Chantal will lead and respond in Spanish, as she understands English very well, and we will be patient. And I'll do my best to translate here. So thank you very much again for having us on your show. We're very pleased, we're very excited. We also a little nervous because for your audience out there, we would like them to know that this is our first time presenting our project to the world. A little bit of history, we'll get into that in the show. And we just want you guys to get to know a little bit about us, what we do, how important it is our project, and how you can actually firsthand participate. So thank you again from all of us at Ecopower. Thank you, Tara, and thank you, Tree Sisters, for this wonderful and great opportunity to share with your audience and the world our findings. Thank you, Tara.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for coming. They actually had written into support to ask about tree funding. And when I read about the project, I was so impressed with what they're doing. So I'd love if you could potentially start with telling us a little bit, what is it like for the Indigenous in that area? What are some of the challenges that they're facing at this time?
Tara, honestly, straight up, it's not good. It's very difficult. It's hard to explain. It's just something that is so shocking. Really, that's why we have documented everything, and we hope that after your show, many of your viewers will go online, take a look at our wonderful videos. We literally have hours of videos available, wonderful things to see, and most importantly, the life and the lifestyle, the hardships endured by our people is what we'd like to demonstrate. Would like to explain the reasoning why, and would like to explain how we aim to solve, actually how we've proven to solve the problem in hand, because again, we've been doing this since 2012, and really it didn't start off in a way that we found ourselves in the Bosawas. We were only aware of the Bosawas in 2015, and then we went in 2016 to the buffer zone and started working our way from there. But we'll get into that later. Basically, the lifestyle is extremely hard, specifically now because we've just had 2 hurricanes 4 months ago pass through the heart of the Bosawas. And as you understand and explain to your viewers, that it's extremely important biosphere because of the biodiversity, having 13% of the world's species, and been the corridor, Mesoamerican corridor connecting 8 countries. So all this wildlife, jaguars, what is left, can freely roam and move from North, Central to South America. So there's so many things we'd like to get into, but firstly, lifestyle is extremely, extremely hard. People live in extreme poverty. There's no electricity. Could you imagine not having electricity and having to cook using wood every day to feed your kids? We all understand that without cooking beans or rice, you'll probably break your teeth. So it's essential to cook for a family. A mother needs to provide and a father needs to provide for the family. We are very family orientated, very loving people, very kind, extremely loving. It actually puts one to shame how simple people with nothing are so much, I don't know if there's a word, but kinder than you are. And you basically are the person who take your shirt off the back, but you know, someone doesn't have a shirt, will take, literally give you everything. I mean, the hospitality is phenomenal. We've documented, we have some great videos where we just show you how wonderful it is and how wonderful people interact. And it's so amazing. And also it's so shocking to see that these people who have less than you could even imagine, are so kind and loving and warm, caring. So just not only will it keep your eyes, it just really blows you away. It shocks you, it makes you wake up and take a second look at who you are, what you're doing, the world around us. It's actually a mirror, and we'd like society to come on in and look in the mirror, because it can only do one good to understand who you are, where you are, and see who's around you and who's with you. And nobody wants to be alone. Love, love, love is really the message that we bring, that we've been shared, and we want to share that with you, because pure love becomes unconditional, and you can't put a price to something if you've got nothing to pay with except your heart. So
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Yeah, I know it's like when you're in a relationship and living with the land and you're not distracted by having a computer or a video game or whatever, your priorities are more about community, and it's not what can I do for me, it's what can I do for all of us as we surviving and living and thriving. And that's so important. You actually have a quote on your website that I love, which is, it's interesting because it's the biosphere and it's a reserve, and so much of the world expects the indigenous people to maintain this amazing wilderness for the health of the planet, and yet they are in the most extreme poverty that you can find, and they have to make choices like, do I cut down a tree so I can feed my family tonight, or do I let my family starve because I'm trying to preserve the trees for the rest of the world? So if you could talk to a little more about what that's like and give us some idea.
Qué difícil la vida allá en Bosawas. Imagina, necesita cortar una árbol cada semana, cada mes para alimentar su familia. Es que él sabe, qué difícil son para una madre y toda la gente sabe, sin alimento.
Bueno, las personas allá viven en condiciones muy malas, no tienen acceso a energía, no tienen acceso a agua potable, no tienen acceso a medicina, no tienen acceso a caminos, viven en una condición que lo único que sobreviven es de la naturaleza, de la tierra, lo que les da, el acceso que tienen. Tienen que alimentar a sus hijos. ¿Cómo podemos pedirle a esas personas que no utilicen madera cuando tienen que alimentar a sus hijos? Es inhumano nosotros decirles, no consuman los árboles para alimentar a sus hijos. Entonces los estamos privando de la vida. Es duro levantarse todos los días en la mañana para ir a recoger madera, Cortar madera lleva muchas horas, mucho trabajo, cargarlo de un punto hasta su casa, encender el fuego, mantener ese humo que molesta, afecta la salud de las personas, ese humo tóxico, para cocinar y darle de alimentar a su hijo. Es duro, duele ver, yo he sido testigo con mis hijas, con mi familia, de la vida. Como sabes, soy nicaragüense, vengo de la ciudad, es duro, pero aún en la zona rural es aún más duro. Bosawas necesita nuestra ayuda.
Okay, so just to recap, it's extremely difficult life in the Bosawas. The necessity to cut down the trees is very, very real. And as a mother, and you know, imagine this: you have to go and cut down a tree, or your husband, your children have to go and cut down a tree. It's extremely hard work. It's difficult. Probably take you the whole day, and then your children, your daughter or your daughters will have to spend up to 8 hours cutting that wood into smaller pieces. Then, if you could imagine having to light a fire in your little house. Again, we live in a rural shack with basic earth floor and just wooden wall and a little artisan stove. There's a lot of smoke. You have to inhale the smoke every day. You have to blow on this fire, get the fire going. Then the family will cook the food. The women are in charge of taking care of the house. They are the basically the matriarch of the house. Men are in the field every day. They wake up very, very early, 4 o'clock, 4:30. They're already on the field by 5, working. Women are left at home to get the breakfast ready, then send one of the children with the food at, let's say, 7 o'clock. So early in the morning, fire is lit. Food takes hours to cook. So beans and corn literally need to simmer for a long time, requiring a lot more wood, obviously. And that means many hours exposed to the smoke and inhalation. And then that's your whole day, literally, up until the evening in this environment. So that consumes most of your family's time, and it's obviously very unhealthy and very, very hard. And what's harder is also, besides all that work, you were born on this property. Chantal was explaining she's from Nicaragua. She's actually born in the city. She's endured many hardships herself, but nothing compares to what we've seen firsthand the last 5 years. A little history about ourselves we'll get into in a minute, but so if you as a parent out there can imagine that these conditions are extremely uncomfortable. Sorry, my daughters, and my 2 daughters, our daughters, in the background. So if any of you listeners out there have some kids in the background, they're just coloring and painting. Abigail. Anyway, so life is very difficult for a mom. As Chantal, running a company, organization, we have our kids. Jeremy's come, we're here, we're working on other projects, we'll get to that later, but we are multitasking, and so too is every mother of this planet. You all know how difficult it is to run a home. That's why us men run out and work, because it's actually much easier. Otherwise, we're lazy by nature. We'd rather be at home. It was much easier. So obviously, it's much more difficult running a household, having to alimento, having to feed your family, having to endure all this hardship. And what's more heartbreaking is at the end of the day, you're destroying something you love, your own home, your own property. These trees were around when your great-grandfather was around. And here you are chopping down something that basically was probably a tree you played in as a child, or it's familiar to your surroundings. It's your home, it's your roots. But it's a moral dilemma here. You're faced with feeding your kids, feeding your family, feeding yourself, so that you can just survive another day. I mean, it's a tough decision. You don't want to make that decision. They don't want to make that decision. So how hard is it to sacrifice? It's like a double sacrifice. Life is so hard as it is, and then you're asking people with nothing to literally sacrifice their lungs, our lungs, to feed the stomach, because without food, without alimentation, we just won't survive. And if these people don't survive, then we will perish because I don't know about you, but I've lived all around the world in Los Angeles, New York, right through to Moscow, to, you know, England, London, where have you, Florence, Italy, South Africa, where have you, Israel. At the end of the day, we all live in these big cities, and I don't know if you noticed, but do you know where your food comes from? 80% of our food does not come from mechanized farming. It comes from these rural and indigenous people. And so they're very, very important to us because if they go, we go, because we don't farm. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but you don't wake up in the morning and farm corn or beans or go milk the cow, make your cheese. The wife, the mom doesn't make cheese for you. The kid's not going to have cheese. So we don't have supermarkets. We don't have that luxury. We live off the land, eat wild avocados. So beautiful in one way, even though it's sad. But when we pass through, or the people pass through, neighbors are very neighborly. You're allowed to eat. Your horse can eat a little bit of corn. You can. No, you don't have to. You know, everybody participates in the land. The land sustains us. Mother Nature is your mother. You're exposed to the elements, not only just like weather, rain, what have you, but you're walking in extreme conditions. A rainstorm comes, you're on top of the mountain, you can fall off, your horse can fall. Snakes, very, very poisonous snakes. As you understand, it's 13% of the world species. You know, hundreds of insects, and obviously there are dozens of different reptiles. And some of these reptiles, for example, the Barba Maria, which is the yellow barber, deadly. Half an hour, one bite, your kids are dead. So there's no hospital within days, journeys. Pregnant women have to get ready a few weeks before the expected birth of the child, go with the husband, walk a couple of days to a small little town, which doesn't really have a hospital or clinic, but it has electricity. And end of the day, have your child there, and then come on back to an environment which is very, very, very difficult. It's the dark ages. It's the easiest way to explain. You're relying on fossil fuel, burning wood, and that's very shocking seeing it firsthand, but understanding that there are literally 100 million families every day reliant on this is even more shocking. So one thing is the Bosawas, where we're focusing on, but really, to your audience, this is a problem worldwide. Even in places as remote as Canada, you wouldn't understand, but very reliant on wood burning. So it actually affects first world countries too. So don't just think it's us and our people. Actually, our people are your people. These people are our life support. They're in charge of our lungs, of our planet. And to understand the dilemma, and then once you understand that, to not act, well, that is just that's signing your own and our suicide, our death warrant, because we've documented terror. Honestly, if your audience can go to castorofnicaragua.com and see for themselves the multitude of videos on that website, where we just would like you to see for yourself that if we do not do something immediately, not sure, but obviously your audience is aware, but for the rest who might look on Facebook, and we're not here to debate whether climate change is real. It is real. I come from first world. Chantal was born in third world. I lived in first world. I'm back in third world. And sorry to say, but please look at our videos, because we need to do something immediately. We're not here to argue with anybody. Stop talking, start planting. We've aligned ourselves with Plant for the Planet. It's a younger generation, and their motto right now, our motto, is stop talking, start planting, because there is no time to talk. Literally, it's an emergency. Please take a look at our first video where we explain. To the left, you can see it's barren. To the right, the Bosawas, it's still green because it has roughly a majority, 50+% of forestation. But
actually, that's definitely a video. I'm sorry, there was a pause. I guess there was a delay on the system.
Away from the current pivotal swivel, and that's why we're so happy that we're on the show, because seriously, guys, The Amazon, you have multitude of hundreds of organizations, and you have 5 different countries and all these different politics. Well, come on over to the Bosawas. It's the second most important biosphere in Americas. Nobody ever knows who's second. You know, everybody says, well, nobody remembers second, right? Second's a loser. Well, second also becomes fourth when first it's not in contention. And right now, scientists are saying and demonstrating, which is true, that the Amazon, in its decline, and we've known that for years, is now literally no longer effective. It's dying, and we're not yet to ask what they think. It's just a fact, and believe it or not, the ones who do believe, we're saying to you, please come on board quickly. Please help the Amazon, but again, please help us, because here you have an isolated community of the last of the Mohicans. Literally, these people have been living like they have for the last 1,500 years. And please, there are so many factors involved here for the decline of our region. We have been, Chantal has been instructed, Jeremy and myself, commissioned by the governing body, the president, vice president, and secretary, and all the community of the Bosawa, the 32 communities that we represent, to represent them. So here we are representing our people, because they have nominated us and given us this wonderful opportunity where we are in charge of such an important biosphere, not only for the biodiversity, the last remaining pumas and jaguars and lynx, and just the sloth and rare animals that are literally on the brink of extinction. These things are so important, more important than us, the biodiversity, the region. So here we are as Ecopower International Initiative, being entrusted and bestowed with this great responsibility of preserving what is intact today. We are aligned with Common Land and the Full Returns policy, which is a scientifically proven formula where we work in 3 zones. We have a rural zone, which is the intact forest. Then we have a combined zone, which is the destroyed parcels of land, the food cultivated parcels of land, and generally where the people culminate, live, and work. And then an economic zone, which is where we intend to put in our social structures, because our contract with the communities is not only to replenish the destroyed terrain, and believe me, there's a lot of terrain destroyed. Satellite is showing around about 31+%, but visually on the ground, we must tell you more like 40 plus. So if we get to that 50, it's literally a season away. It could be this year, it could be next year, but it certainly won't be longer than that. We will pass the 50% point, and that means rain clouds will no longer come. It will no longer act as a biosphere. Rain clouds dissipate and disappear. That means no water. That means no food. And then these families will have to migrate to cities. And fortunately, you're now without food, because for every one person who cultivates food, cultivates for about 1,000 others. So one of our people make food for 1,000 of us. And this actually is an example of worldwide. So we'd like you to understand when we're talking about Bosawa as a biosphere is very, very important. And here you have an opportunity to come on board and actually tackle the second and help get in now before it's too late, and preserve the Bosawas before what's happening to the Amazon, without having all the politics, because it's really in a zone which is bordering 2 countries, Nicaragua and Honduras. It's isolated, so there's not very much politics. There is a little bit going on, but that we don't want to discuss. We just want to discuss the fact that here your audience has an opportunity to come on in, help preserve what's left of the Bosawas, empower our 30,000 plus people through regenerative reforestation, intelligent reforestation, where we have literally worked 8 years. And we want to just share with you what we've been able to achieve, which
And before we jump into that, could I just feedback a little bit about what you shared? First off, it's amazing that you were chosen and asked to help protect and preserve the Bosawas Biosphere and the Indigenous there. That's beautiful. That's amazing. And I think to me, there is no first or second most important. Any piece of land that is still naturally biodiverse is priceless. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I know that the Western world kind of frames, oh, this is the most important. This is the second, there's no competition. Any native land is still.
We've been in the shadow. We're fighting here for the Bosawas to be recognized. Really, we know about the Bosawas, at least I didn't know until 5-6 years ago, and it wasn't even accessible to me 5-6 years ago. We literally set foot in 2016 and went to the last outpost as far as the rural roads would get us, and we lived there for 4 years. Our children grew up in the Bosawas, and we are very proud to have earned our responsibility.
Yes, and another piece of that is I think some of us who are over, like I'm in America and I'm like, oh, there's this biosphere and there's all this amazing biodiversity, and it's kind of romanticized in our heads, and we don't really think about the fact that they don't have a hospital to go to when they have an emergency nearby, or they run out of food. If they have the hurricane came through and wiped out the crop, they can't go to the local grocery store and grab food. There's a whole, I don't know, cultural impact there that, they have difficult lives. They have amazing lives also in that they have that relationship with nature, which I wish a lot of us over in, more like westernized world would respect nature and have that bond with nature that they do. But there is that also balance that they don't have the conveniences and the healthcare and the different aspects that they need.
Well, this is where we'd like you guys to come and partner up with us, because this is an opportunity that you just mentioned where we can help each other here. You come on in and help us preserve the Bosawas, empower these people so they are water-dependent, water-sustainable, all through regenerative reforestation. And obviously, in time, we'd love the audience to know more about what we do, because we could really talk hours here. But we want to focus on the most important issue. And because we represent an issue that is pivotal in making the change, we'd like to focus on that. But think about this long term. If the Bosawas were to be it's very accessible to the States. You could fly from Miami within an hour and a half. So one day, we hope to be the first example of many, many, many indigenous terrains, territories, lands, where it will act as an independent, water-sustainable example for the whole world to follow, where everything is self-sustainable. So everything we consume, we make ourselves, everything's biodegradable. The woman and the men, or mainly the woman, as we all know, do the washing. And, we use fossil fuel soaps, which pollute our rivers. Those are the same rivers we rely on to drink, and our cattle and our crops and the trees. And pollution does kill. If you look at some of our videos, you'll see the River Coco, or the Rio Plata, which is the border between Honduras and Nicaragua. See all these plastic bottles? Do they make their way to the ocean? As we all know, and you see some videos where we show you in the ocean the plastic waste. And here with this one, we can make over 800 biodegradable products. And we have a philosophy: the same consumption, man's consumption, that destroyed our planet, through what we show you on our website, will be the same consumption that will repair our planet, because everything is reliant on reforestation. So not only is it so vital and important to use Castor in a reforestation and landscape restoration project, because it acts as it offers the understory trees, the tropical trees. For example, we plant oak trees, Lanceti trees, and all these wonderful indigenous trees together with our Castor. But these trees will live for hundreds of years, but they literally also take 5, 10, 15 years to establish. And if you don't protect them during that phase, you're not going to have a high successful rate. So the Castor acts as protection. It gives nutrients. Not only we farm with tropical trees, but we like to intercrop food, because food security is very important to our planet. 11% of the planet's go without food every day. So here we have a philosophy where, firstly, because of the nutrients that tree offers and the protection, the foliage is nutrients, the tree offers shade. In the dry months, the roots that can go up to 15 plus meters will act as natural irrigation and bring water up to the surface plants. Coffee plants, for example, have a half-meter of root system. So in the most extreme dry months, the castor will be able to sustain and help sustain the whole biosphere, the environment. We've shown it on our videos where we've farmed in the desert. Obviously, we've used some irrigation in that instance, and we farm coffee in what people would say it's impossible to farm coffee in because it's 40 degrees. But yeah, that's outside. When we got inside our trees, it's 27, 28, 29 degrees. And we have demonstrated where we've actually taken an old military base, which is concrete, and we have, within less than a year, rehabilitated. So in the event of a nuclear fallout, we've actually shown you around how to recuperate should it happen. So we've documented it. There's so many wonderful videos, Sarah. We just really don't have enough time. So I don't know, the focus here, we hope your audience will stay with us and contact us, because this whole interaction is to make contact and open our doors to participate. And we're hoping that your Spanish students will call Chantal, because this is an opportunity for us to literally, we want to get our project out there as quick as possible. Bosawas is one thing, but we are working in Argentina and Brazil at the moment, and in the rest of Central America, from Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, and even southern part of Mexico, and maybe El Salvador. But really, at this point, there's a lot of interest, and we are working as hard as we can. But there's so much more work to be done, so we need help. We need everybody to come on board and establish projects with us, or if there are existing projects that will obviously are reliant on funding and donation. Here we are in a catch-22 because we need public funding to help us empower our communities. We are an open book philosophy, so you can see on our webpage all the expenses, but mainly what we intend doing is more what we want the public to see, because not by just recuperating our forests and our biosphere, that's important, and very importantly, making the transition from fossil fuel wood and leaving the forest alone. Because if you can imagine 100 million families daily reliant on wood consumption, their family, if you just do a little bit of mathematics, we'll tell you that the average family consume about 200 pounds per day. Some families 300 plus, but taking the average into account, it's just mind-boggling when you do the numbers. And if you think of like a 200-year-old tropical tree that's over 100 feet in height, a saber, an NCT, literally hundreds of years old. Well, each family consume at least 2 of the most gigantic trees you could imagine. Well, 2 of those per family, that's quite a lot per year. But if we were to take it down to something we're more familiar with, like a 15 or 20-year-old oak tree, well, then you're talking about 1 per month or 2 per month. And if it's a 5-year-old oak tree, you're talking weekly, right? Or the big families, it could be daily. It also depends on the time of the season. There's many factors. So firstly, we need to tackle that. And the only way to do that is through our project, because we make the energy renewable. Our people who consume wood will make their own renewable energy that's reliant on reforestation. So they will have to recuperate their terrain in order to give their kids food, which is better than cutting down a tree and easier. And at the end of the day, the excess will be sold to the world, which will empower our people, because the money goes directly into their hands. They have a fixed contract price, because we actually treat people the way we would like ourselves to be treated, which is equal and fair. And that philosophy passes through to our members, because they don't work for us or we don't work for them. We work together as equals. We go and empower people by explaining to them how valuable they are. We see them as extremely valuable. They've been told that they have no value, and that is why all of these people, not just where we operate in Central America, but in Africa and pretty much most of the third world countries. That's what we've inherited as a generation, and we need to fix the problem immediately before the problem fixes us. So empowering people is most important here, because without these people, we will not have our food, and energy obviously is running out, fossil fuel. Here's a way for these same people to make our food and our energy, because again, by planting the castor with food crop, you increase your crop by up to 30%. You also plant different trees. So we've demonstrated on our videos on our About Us page on castor.com. And again, we have our initiative, which is ecopowerinitiative.com. And we'd love to talk to you about what we're launching, which is rainforestreliance.org and .com, which is actually our brand of products that you, the public, hopefully, if you help us get our first project up and running, you will, as soon as possible, have these products available, because your consumption is your vote. Our consumption is our vote. I don't believe that any of us have the right to talk unless we truly mean what we say, and the best way is through action. So I understand that if there's no way, and people have no way of participating, if you're in Barcelona to Bangkok or Madrid to Moscow, end of the day, we also have no right to say, look, wrong. We're not looking to pass blame. We're trying to say, look, here's a solution. All you logical people out there, you know what we're talking about, come on board, because we need your help, because we together can only solve this problem. We can't look for institutions or big business to help us because they see opportunity or they see threat. Either way, it doesn't work for us. So public support is pivotal to us. That's why we have out here asking for you to participate. We operate the same as an organization. We have our new arm, the organization opening now, but we need to empower people. So we like to mix socialism with capitalism, and really, we don't want to use those two words, because what we're trying to demonstrate is just love, peace, harmony, cooperation, education. Solve these problems, you solve all the problems. So here you have an opportunity to really solve the problem, but by solving the problem, it means relinquish control. It means open yourself up to participation. Participation means equal participation. It means sharing the workload, or individual, just minimum participation. Nobody's here to say who works harder than anybody, but definitely we need doers, and we need you, your audience, to understand. That's why we put ourselves out here.
Sure. And if I could hop in here, Jessie. I think, I admire your passion. I see how much you care about this. And, we had a previous talk before we went on recording, and I know how much this means to you and how important it is. You have an idea that is working, and it could actually help the world itself. And I think we kind of went a little fast, and the audience might have missed that you are holding up a castor bean, and that this is castor trees are what you're talking about, and mixing those in with the other trees, and how that castor tree helps bring the earth back, helps bring the water up, and helps the crops to grow, and helps restore the land. Because there's a lot of pressure. And one more point I want to jump onto before I turn back to you all is that there's a lot of pressure on South America, where they are asked to raise the cattle and deforest their trees so they can grow crops to feed the cattle and have the cattle eating the grass. And in the end, it completely denudes the mountain and strips it down, and there's nothing left, which is absolutely horrible. And we're seeing the weather patterns changing because of this. And we as consumers have that right, that choice to say, you know what, that particular company is stripping the Amazon. I'm not supporting that. I want to buy from the indigenous people who are living in a way that they're, regrowing their land and protecting their land. And that's where we can vote with our conscience and our money by supporting those projects. So yes, I'm interested in hearing about that, but if we could go a little bit about how the castor beans, how those trees work, where an average project, where do you start a project? Do you just find a piece of deforest land and start planting trees, or how does it work?
Okay, I want Chantal to participate a bit, so I'm going to
Okay.
translate.
Sure.
Sabe beneficios que sirven como ejemplo. Iniciamos nuestro proyecto de manera y comienza y después hablamos con, por ejemplo, que la sirve todos, entonces comienza con ¿qué operamos? ¿En qué manera vamos allá? ¿Qué es necesario para iniciar una negocio?
Primero, las personas allá están conscientes de la importancia del medio ambiente, de la naturaleza.
Firstly, people are aware of the importance of nature and the biodiversity. And
Entonces, cuando nosotros llegamos y le explicamos el objetivo del proyecto, que es reforestación inteligente, por medio de la siembra de higuera, las personas, primero, todo es un proceso. Hay que explicar primero qué es el árbol, para qué sirve, los beneficios que aporta, los nutrientes que aporta la tierra y los beneficios que les trae a ellos a futuro. Les planteamos la idea de dar una solución a sus problemas, a que ellos maximicen su tiempo, que ellos tengan esperanza, porque ellos necesitan este proyecto para empoderarse, porque son las personas que están más preocupadas por el medio ambiente, en realidad.
okay, this catch up a little bit before we get too long. So firstly, when we get to a location, Chantal was saying that people are obviously extremely aware of the problems faced, climate change and global warming. So they're very receptive because they're intrigued. They want to find out how they can solve the problems that are unfolding in front of their eyes. So basically, we don't have any resistance. Immediately, we are open armed. They are obviously wanting to hear, a little bit about, this possible solution. Remember, everything's word of mouth, because we first get to one location, let's say the end of the road, like we did with the Bosawas. We managed to, in those days, it took us 14 hours to drive from where we lived to what's called the buffer zone of the Bosawas, in a territory called Ron, which is an autonomous zone. So it's the end of the road, the last stop. And then from there, that's like a one-horse town, which, if you can imagine, it's the end of the road. So there are villages all around the zone, which obviously rely on cultivation of food crops that will then send them to that town, and then from that town to make it to the market and to your table. So that's where we start off in that zone, but we've obviously moved way beyond 100+ kilometers into the jungle. But how we got into the jungle is by getting to the outskirts where there's no more road, so the car won't go any further. Then what do you do from there? Well, you do what everybody else does. You've got to get on horseback, you've got to get on donkey, and you've got to trek. And then you do what, let's say, a pastor would do, and you go from community to community. And really, it's education. So they are open firstly to hearing our point of view. How we work is we go on in and we actually do a video presentation, and we talk along with actual visual, and we talk sense, because again, we understand that you should see some of our videos and photos. The majority who come to the first meeting are women, and then they'll go home and they'll get the husband, and because we've got to meet first to corral the community and let them know that there will be a presentation in a week or two or a month later, because it takes word of mouth, it takes time to reach each community. People generally walk 2 kilometers, 1.25 miles every hour, or obviously they can double time it and run. And these guys are obviously very equipped, so they could probably do it in double the time. But generally, families come, children, all ages, So on average, 2 kilometers, 1 point what have you miles per hour. So people have to really come some distance, and they will generally dedicate a whole day. And when I say a whole day, I mean 16 plus hours or more, because it could take 8 hours to get there and 8 hours back home, and a couple of hours of the meeting. So we'll generally arrange food, and we'll get families on board to come, and we'll bring food, or we will have food presented, and we will obviously cover, because I mean, without food you can't. It's energy. You can't walk 8 hours on an empty stomach, and but people do. Unfortunately, they do. They come, and obviously we live off the land, so we have wild avocado. So we have sorry, the kids. Jeremy had to
It's
leave.
okay. Oh, okay.
Lana painting and drawing, so thank you, Jeremy. Sorry, guys. Kids, we try to do the meeting early so
That's
they would wake
okay.
up, but we heard it, and we'll show them.
Sure.
If you hear anything in the background again and wondering why Jeremy's not here, we're a team and we work. And so back to the people. So how we operate, we educate, we'll do a presentation, women will come, we tackle these issues, we show them on video, obviously, our hard work. Because remember, Chantal and I, we met in 2012. I came from Germany straight through to Nicaragua to get into peanut butter farming, because I was heavily involved in producing low-income foods for the dollar stores in America. So my background is blue chip companies, Dollar Tree from Norfolk, Virginia, and Chesapeake, and 99 cent only out of Long Beach, California, and focusing on low-income families, giving them more value for money, cheaper, meant that I had to cut out the middleman. I ended up making my own brands. For example, I would make in the Skippy factory in China the same as Skippy product, actually better, using high quality, but shipped it under a no-name brand to the dollar stores. Instead of 12 ounces, it would be 14 ounces. Ran a tight ship. Expenses were low, so didn't need to take from society more than was necessary. So cutting out really the middleman, even though I was contract manufacturing companies, but bringing the cost down and getting those low-income families 2 ounces more peanut butter really would mean, like, if you've got a family of 6, feeding 5 again 1 free. And after Christmas, when there's no money, peanut butter sales, peanut butter is very important, and honey, and basically essential products. So that's where I got in the beginning days, and so I came here to Nicaragua to set up peanut butter factory, and actually in Central America, a multitude of factories, so that I could supply just the dollar stores. But here we are doing so much more and wonderful things. A little more history is vegan, alternative foods, meats, chickens, and fish. I was heavily involved in the production during the early 2000s. Today, it's very, very popular. It's become a new thing, but for these Impossible Burgers, I was making those in 2003. Made them in Italy, in Florence, in London, in Taiwan, in Los Angeles, in Fresno, California. So I got into that industry to combat global warming, as you said, cattle ranching and meat consumption, and being a carnivore. My sister being a vegan. End of the day, no haters here. So solutions are wanted. So I got into soy-based alternative meats, fish and chicken, poultry, TV dinners, and focusing really on curbing the consumption, the destruction of the Amazon. So this was 18 years ago. So what we're doing today is really not a far stretch of where we started off, because I came to Nicaragua to do the peanuts after having a decade involved in artificial food, but being difficult because a lot of reasons. So anyway, got to Nicaragua, still in peanut butter, and why we got into Castor is because peanuts take all the nutrients out of the soil. You can only do 2 seasons, and then you have to intercrop with cotton or soya or some other crop to compensate. And obviously, you have to use large amounts of fertilizers and chemicals. to get your crops, and that destroys the planet. So looking for a cleaner alternative solution to my problem, I started farming Castor. Getting involved, learning more, learning how important and vital it is to our daily life. For example, this video conversation would not be able to take place without the Castor, because our cell phones and the chips inside and your computers and your screen relies on Castor oil. Your screen is 2/3 glass fiber and 1/3 Castor oil because of many reasons. Basically, it can withstand heat and gives a good finish. So technology is very reliant. You can make everything from soap, shampoos, cosmetics, and obviously high quality biodegradable from Castor. Energy is what we're focusing on, because the problem here is energy, and we want to first tackle the preservation of our rainforests, and then the recuperation, and obviously empowering people, giving them a livelihood so that they can protect, because giving them energy is one thing, but without an income, they're still going to cut their tree down to sell, to get medicine, as you mentioned earlier, must be extremely difficult. Well, every time I go into the jungle, I take Chantal packs me a good bag of medicines, everything you can imagine, discipline, whatever you can encounter, you've got to be prepared. So ironically, I've been over the years accustomed to it, so I'm pretty strong. I wasn't in the beginning, so I'm resistant. So
There you go.
So and resilient. So today, when I go in, I give my medicine away. I mean, what would cost us not even 20 cents can really save a life. It literally has saved many lives. Thanks to Chantal, always backing my medicine, and thanks to me always just giving that out. No point coming home with it. And you pass a home, you've been trekking hours and hours through the jungle where nobody goes. And then you come across a home and you've got to drink water that comes out the mountain. It's amazing, different soils, different tastes, and you take a leaf and you drink right through a spring. I mean, obviously it's great, but there are parasites because cattle and things like that. So, a little parasite can cause a lot of discomfort, and really, elderly person may even, knock the wind right out of them, and could be your last days just on something simple as dysentery or even just an aspirin or paracetamol stuff, and antibiotics. So basic antibiotics really can save lives. So important that we focus on all these issues, because if you don't understand not just one problem, there's a multitude of problems, but when you understand holistically, the general problem is really simple. It's empowerment. And how that begins is we started on the rural zones of the end of the road, as we explained, and we went community to community. In the beginning, nobody, they weren't familiar with this thing. So we actually gave the beginning our first people, but what we found were city dwellers, people who have access to electricity, road system. They're really lazy. They want to rather have a little store and compete with ego with their neighbor and whatever, the same as we all do. In big cities. So that didn't really work for us. So we started our project, and because of these reasons, we actually found out that half the people were useful, the other half were just there to drain. So when we stopped paying people, that immediately cut the half that were of no service, weren't going to serve our cause, and really just doers and go-getters and workers is what we were looking for. So that's something we implemented, was basically we get into a partnership with people where we ended up offering them 3 to 5 times more, because we value them at least 3 to 5 times more, if not 30 to 50 times more. They're invaluable, basically. Without them, we should really be at their behest, because their survival is our survival. Again, we all are dependent on each other. So this is the whole point of the interaction, to understand that everything's a gift, nothing is owned. Life is short. You come in with nothing, leave with nothing. Simple things are the best things in life. You'll never be able to appreciate anything until you've lost it. And these certain, and what's worse is never having it in the beginning. So you wouldn't know what you're losing, but you do see your land getting lost, you see encroachment, you see your trees getting uprooted and sold. You don't see any benefit, and then you see miners come on in, and then you get told to leave your land. If you don't, you get taken care of.
Yes,
Which,
yes.
we don't want to get into that.
Sure.
We're a loving family. We started off innocently, and luckily I come from a little bit of a background of family that always tough and activists. And I guess it's my turn to stand up and, you know, stand up for obviously our 30,000, but I really want to stand up for all of you, and because I understand your platform. Again, we've been in the jungle for many years, and the point was, when we told people in theory what we wanted to achieve during 2013, the vision came to us, but it evolved 2014. We had our first business stolen, so we realized the value. Again, I'm an engineer agronomer, and we actually have developed and patented our seeds. Again, you say it's a fascinating because it's a tree. Absolutely. We focus on trees, whereas most of the world's castor production is done mechanized by bush. So that is where we are reliant on manual labor, not on mechanized labor. So we focus on job creation, food security, restoration of our rainforest, preservation, empowerment, education, because our families walk literally hours in the mud to a little shack to get just a coloring book and a pen and a pencil and somebody teaching the alphabet. Whereas if we could just empower these people where they're making our products, our soaps, our shampoos, our combustible, our energy, everything and more that fossil fuel offers us today. So basically you won't go without anything. It will all be better quality and obviously cheaper. And our consumption, which destroyed the planet, will recuperate our planet. That is really in a nutshell what we want to do. Tackle the 100 million families that daily rely on burning wood. If we don't tackle that immediately, I mean, that is really one of the highest causes of deforestation, slowly. But again, cattle ranching and farming is very important. Therefore, we work with cattle ranchers. We generally plant half a parcel. We will plant half the amount of trees. We offer the cows shade, so they don't have to walk and forage, which means they don't lose weight. They give more milk, at least 10% more, because the foliage of the castor tree will give nutrients that will then, you'll notice the grass will be a couple of inches around the tree higher with more nutrients. And then the shade, which means they don't have to keep constantly walking, foraging for food, cows, losing energy, gain energy. It's just like a repeat, the end of the cycle. So if they can just sit tight, eat, and then relax and get fat and produce more milk and then more meat one day, so they stop producing milk. Again, our people rely on the cow for, I mean, they're basically vegetarians, vegans. They don't eat meat. They'll make a sacrifice of a chicken or a pig once every now and then, but generally very, very vegan, very vegetarian. I mean, the only thing is lactose, cheese, which is a supplement. So, you know, for all you vegans out there, support us because, you know, you're vegan. So, 30,000 people, okay? So, you know, then you guys to come on over because establishing the Bosawas is very important for a number of reasons, but really we want to empower all those indigenous communities worldwide. We're hoping to get through to via your network and word of mouth, everyone who's watching, you know, come on, just help out because really we can't do it alone. Not these 30,000 people. We need that 100 million that are available, willing and able, and believe it or not, they require this change more than we do. They are more dependent on survival. So participation, 100% participation. Education, 100% necessary because believe it or not, actually they could teach us a few things. They have teachers.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Teach the world actually more than you would expect. Actually, we'll change our notion. We know nothing.
Yes. In fact, one of my theories is, you know how people say first world country and third world country? I don't think of them as third world country. I think what they have to teach us is more important than we have to teach them. And yes, so that's amazing. We're kind of running out of time. So I just want to kind of reiterate to the audience, because there's a lot on your websites that they can watch and see, but that, you know, the castor tree planting, it produces an oil that is used, as you said, in soap and shampoos and fuels and so many different products that it's actually giving them away out of poverty. I'm not sure if you're familiar with our projects, but a lot of our projects, there's several that also are cutting down the trees, and we're hiring them as, you know, the people to replant the deforested areas, and that's an income which gets them out of poverty, gets them out of slavery, gives them income to buy food.
Interrupt, but I just need to interrupt because that's the thing. Our people don't want any handouts. They don't want to be paid. They just want
Right.
opportunity. So they're very proud. You don't understand. They will not sell their honor. There's no price. So forget about money. So we are actually doing an exchange where they, the land, the labor, they're in charge of their own land. We have right now 212 families that have farmed and are on board, but we have 2,000 waiting. We can't take those families on, and we recuperate more than we've already done because, you know, our families are pretty much just farming their food parcels for protection of the food. Because, for example, with corn, if you go without 14 days of rain, you lose your crop. Very, very, very sensitive crop. Beans, too much rain will destroy your crop. So the castor is very important now for protecting the corn. So our families are really just farming the basic necessity right now, but they have this abundance of land that is destroyed that they would love to recuperate, and they're willing to do their work for free. All they want you to do is an exchange. For example, we ask for 10 cents per tree, pretty much the cheapest reforestation project on the planet. And again, if you look at our website, we explain to you how that 10 cents is amortized. 3 cents will go to the electricity, 1 cent to machinery, so that they can make their own roads. They have their own technicon. They can train our kids. We're not going to import people to run our factories. They are going to be self-educated here. So the kid at 10, 12, technicon, he'll learn how to, if he's inclined with mechanized machinery, he will be a machinist and he'll print oil, what have you. If a young lady, the girl, the daughter, is really smart, because they're already smart, they're just as smart as your kids, if not smarter, they just need an opportunity. So given that opportunity, obviously we expect that, you know, top of the class, they'll become our chemical engineers. So we're expecting that within 8 to 10 years or less, you will have a young lady, 18 years old, who'll be a chemical engineer, making your renewable plastic, making your renewable makeups, your lipsticks, your soaps, your shampoos, your conditioners. Firstly, we can do that all right now because we've basically done it. We had our first factory, unfortunately, sequestrated, taken away from us, and our first 350-member cooperative dismantled because of the change of socioeconomics in the country we operate in that we don't want to mention too much about, but it's all there on our website. But as you know, some things that are beneficial to others could be a threat to others, or obviously always are. So because this is so powerful, it socially empowers, it changes social economics. Our wages will go up to an uneducated person can make up to $30 a day just picking castor, and at the same time, you'll get your renewable energy literally half price to what you're paying now. All your soaps, your shampoos, every single product, your biodegradable plastics, all cheaper than what you're paying now. If you just work with our Indigenous of our world, and literally the 100 million families, that's a $500 million, need your support today. They need you to come on in, because by helping the Bosawas and giving a pilot project for the world to show. Now, Chantal and I have had our factory. We've shown you guys the world that it can be done, because everybody told us up to 2015 it can't be done. They were only after the intellectual property. We've had twice our intellectual property attempt to be stolen. So we've given it to the people that it's out there, so nobody can steal it. Only people who have the charge are the people who farm it and participate. And they get paid 3 times more or up to 5 times more than any other industry. I hate to say this, but every time you drink a cup of coffee and you pay $1 to $5, our family, which is generally a husband and a wife plus 2 kids who make your coffee, they farm their parcel for 3 years, then they go out in treacherous condition, they get 1 cent. And don't you think we could give them 2 or 3 cents per coffee? You know, that you're packaging.
Yeah.
Without that family, we would not be drinking the coffee, we would not have chocolate. And here we have an opportunity to intercrop coffee, cacao, maize, and all vegetables and fruit together on the same parcel, maximizing Earth's potential, maximizing our potential, our land, our manpower, our resources. So by coming on board, firstly, we are on board with the Trillion Tree campaign and Plant for the Planet, because the objective here is 100 million hectares by 2030 and up to 350. And we believe we can do 5-6 times more, but definitely can do 350 million hectares. And should you just piggyback and incorporate our intellectual property specifically because it has an extended lifespan of 7 years. It gives 7 to actually 10 times more yield than any other. So if you would use the normal Castor, we just make energy maybe for the community, but no additional income, nothing for you guys. So you wouldn't reclaim our planet, and our Indigenous would still be forced to cut down the tree so they can buy medicine to save their granny's life or their mom, or to educate the kids, buy some pencils. So we need to empower people with empowerment, and the only way to do it is offer them the same opportunities that you offer your own children and your own family. Treat them as children of our planet, and we'll get on just fine, because without them, we're doomed. So I don't know if you think you're in charge, but nobody's in charge. Mother Nature's in charge. There's only one Jefe, boss, and Mother Earth. So respect your mom, your dad, and do as they say. Not as they do, because
Yes.
this generation.
Wow,
they
true,
were-
yes. Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, and yeah, I think that's the point I want to make sure it gets across to the people watching this. I apologize, your sound cut out. I didn't realize you were still talking, but that this one castor tree, it just does so many things. It can help revive the land. It can help them grow other crops. They can grow the beans and the corn and everything else that they need to sell. It provides them a way to make an income. And also, there's just so much possibility with this idea that you're working on. And it is amazing. So I want to make sure you know that we will be sharing your website with our viewers. We'll be putting up links to both of your websites. I know there's a petition to help try to get your factory back, and I will share that as well.
We're not interested in anything except working with Indigenous populations in autonomous zones. Legally, we are the representative under the United Nations of our people. We only want the best for our people. So what we need is to have a factory in their hands that they are able to
Yes.
then, so by supporting us at 10 cents a tree, we're going to build a renewable energy factory. We're going to supply 2,000 families with electric plant, generator, renewable, non-toxic, electric stove, battery, lights, everything they need, the wires, etc. So basically, 3 cents of every tree goes to, well, we'll work up to 1.5 when you amortize the 20 million trees. So 1.5 cents goes to each family for electricity, then 3 cents to the factory, etc. So you're building a renewable energy factory that gives these rural people opportunity to make their own non-toxic, biodegradable, renewable energy at the same time as additional income with the excess. So that is our objective here. Then food and food security, and pretty much your money will go towards one hospital that will accommodate 18 overnight guests, 6 adult women, 6 adult men, and 6 children combined, along with an ambulance, a university, a technicon, a workshop, because obviously we fix our own trucks. A truck breaks down, we've got to know how to fix it. A machine breaks down, we need to know how to fix it. So we need to bring out professionals, kids, and our communities, and then they'll be on their own and they'll be fine. So we aim to put a pharmaceutical factory, a lactose factory, a coffee factory, a cacao factory, because people right now, our people farm coffee and cacao together with the castor, along with the tropical trees. And in a year or 2 from now, they're producing, and we would like to make your chocolate and your coffee. And by identifying our product, it's simply rainforestreliance.org.com. We'll have our mark, and our first products will be available to you when you help us by producing these products. And everything is ready, the land, the manpower, our contract for 31,000+ hectares will guarantee our 6,000 families, 30,000+ people, a $45 million per year income, fixed price. Every 5 years, it will be reevaluated, but for each 5 years, it's fixed. We empower people. We want you to empower our world, because that's the only way we're going to sustain our planet is by working together and sharing together. So best way is by leading by example. So please come on board, share with us where we've shared our intellectual property we've given to the poorest, because if it went into the wrong hands, you never ever hear about it, and you'd still be paying 25 times more than you should. So if you like paying less and getting more bang for your buck, then this is for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, sure. Because I understand it's community based, it's community driven. You could have handed it over to one of these larger companies that could have brought you out, and then it would have been all about profit for them. And they'd forget.
We've been offered.
Yeah,
we've
and that's
taken-
not what you're after. Yeah, so I want to make sure that point's clear to the network, that you're here trying to help support the communities, get them out of poverty, provide needs that they have. You're not after the big bucks. You could have sold off a long time ago, but you didn't do that. So that's very admirable in this world.
We have the big bucks. We want the big bucks to be in their hands, because 100 million people
Right.
sharing their power means that
Yes.
that power will never be abused. Okay, if one or two road people go bad, it's not going to affect us. It's like Bitcoin. It's a blockchain. We want to create a
Yes.
blockchain but give it intellectual property to the people that will sustain generation for generation. We want our company to be in the cloud where it's operating on its own. And this is a dream that we have, let's say, from a perspective of keeping it safe. So that is something we'd like you to help us attain.
Yeah.
And let it be the indigenous. Chantal says we would like the indigenous communities to have their humanity in their hand, to have their own proprios, their own independence, their own autonomy. So this is a way to empower them, because we believe that they should be protected. The only way to protect is to give them the power to protect themselves, and that requires financial power so they can build their own hospitals. We just want to get them up and running, and then they will be on their own, and we will take it and pay it forward. The organization, the profits that are made are to go to funding other projects. We expect the first 1, 2, or 3 projects society's help, but after that we will be on our own, because as an organization there will be a domino effect. First and foremost, the $2 million is obviously just a small amount to get us the basics, connect each family, connect each community with a road. As you can see, we've built many roads before. We built over 29 kilometers of road, which was seized by the company last year and taken over by the powers that be to kill our project. 350 farmers who had trusted in us and worked with us for a number of years who are out of an income overnight. So we are operating 70 kilometers north inside the Bosawas under United Nations protection, where nothing can stop our project. And we're also working on the other side of the river in Honduras. So we have our second project that is up and running now, and we start planting in 5-6 weeks from now. So we're very excited. We're launching our second project at the beginning of May. And we're working in Argentina and Brazil, and we want Africa. So there's 80 countries. Any of you in those 80 countries? Well, call Chantal, Jeremy, myself. Can you say bye, Jeremy?
Sure. And, maybe we can have you back later on, and you can tell us about your updates, what's going on with your project once you get started on your second project. And we can have a different conversation about, the scientific parts of the castor oil. And I really appreciate you all coming. And
talk about those kind of things, maybe we can segment. But Chantal wanted to finish with just one very important point. So she'll speak in Spanish and I will translate.
Okay.
Quería clarificar porque muchas personas nos han comentado sobre la energía solar que funciona, pero en nuestro caso vivimos en una zona tropical en donde no hay mucho sol, todo el tiempo hay nubes. Si no hay nubes, el panel solar no puede captar la energía, entonces es como no tener nada. Y otra cosa muy importante es que un sistema solar decente para que pueda levantar una estufa, las personas cocinan, es muy caro. Y como te decimos, son personas pobres que no tienen acceso, no tienen la capacidad financiera para poder comprar un sistema solar que funcione adecuadamente. Entonces, por eso nosotros le damos la alternativa de tener la tala de árboles para producirnos combustible para comer, y lo que queremos es darle un sistema autosostenible, y viable, y que todo el tiempo esté trabajando, funcionando, y las personas se sienten felices trabajar porque es lo que ellos quieren.
So Chantal wanted to just stress an important point for the audience out there who might say solar is the solution. we've had a lot of this before, so we'd like to explain why solar really is not a solution. And please, we have nothing against solar, but on a practical basis, it doesn't work for simple reasons. Firstly, a plant that will generate enough energy to cook a family's food or heat a family during winter or dry your clothes can be very costly, can run up to about $1,600 for a basic plant. And really, we poor people, as she mentioned, and we just don't have access to that kind of money. So it's impossible that we can access a plant for $1,600 and to ask the world to pay $1,600 to help us out really is also just not viable. Firstly, we don't have that money, and even if we did, we could use it to do so many better things. So we, with our project, offer a solution with, again, with solar. Chantal was mentioning we live in tropical climate, so there's obviously clouds, and we're trying to recuperate the rainforest, which means we want to attract rain clouds. So there will be hopefully many, many days of clouds and rain, which means there will not be any solar energy generated. That means those days families will not be able to eat. So therefore, hence, you have a breakdown in communication and system. So that's another reason why solar doesn't work, apart from it being expensive and inaccessible. It really won't work, and it defeats the objective here. The objective is clouds, rain, food. So rain or shine, our project works for a number of reasons. As you know, it empowers people. But again, roughly it costs $150 to empower a family. And that's the electric plant, the stove, the battery, the lights. And again, with an income, that means with electricity, the kids don't have to walk hours in the rain or shine or what have you to school for a basic education. They can stay home with mom in the kitchen. You know, mom can do the chores, take care of the house, maintain the house. Daughter can sit there in the kitchen with a laptop, satellite, internet, get first-class education. How did they get that computer or laptop or, you know, tablet, cell phone? Well, not from you, the public, you know, hands out, because dad is working and dad's making money. Because here I am, I'm not making $5 a day, I'm making $30. You know, and I've got 2 sons. So we're making $90 as an income, as a home, as a family per day. That means we're going to give our kids the best education. We're going to buy them a computer. We want them to have a life that we never had the opportunity. This is the whole point. It's about empowerment, generation to generation. Parents like us are worried. Not only will our kids even, you know, be around, but, you know, in 5 years, there's going to be no food, no trees. These kids are not going to have anything. So, you know, now it's just crunch time, and we need the world to understand that this is a proven thing. We've 8 years doing this. Chantal had to, you know, endure a real hard upbringing, as did so did everybody else and hundreds of millions of families worldwide. So she speaks for them from the heart. And you know, I've walked in somebody else's shoes for a long time. And that's why I'm so on board, because nothing more rewarding than firstly loving what you do, following your heart, you know, and not being afraid of commitment, because the rest really doesn't matter. I'm sure it will follow. The preoccupations, the worries is what stops us from doing it. The negativity, and we're a prime example, because everybody said we were crazy, and the ones who were interested only had one thing in the mind. So we just did it because we had no other option, and we documented it because we knew that when we came out of hiding, we would probably be faced with the same things we were faced in the beginning. So to eliminate that possibility, we just said, you know, talk to the hands, or rather just see for yourself. And, you know, it's either for you or it's not for you. Just try, you know.
Well, that is a beautiful way to wrap up. That wisdom was absolutely lovely, and I'm really grateful that you've shared it. And I'm really appreciative of your time here. I do apologize, but I do need to go. So I need to wrap this up, and we can be in contact again. And, you know, anyone on our network who's watching, you'll have access to the website. You can email them if you have ideas, if you know of things that might help them, if you want to donate to plant trees with them, whatever you have that you'd like to share with them. I'm sure they're happy to hear from you. and receive that. So we will definitely be sharing our information. And again, just, yeah, we'll keep in contact and we'll see if we can set up another conversation, go a little more in depth in some other areas. Thank you so very much.
Wars were not won in a day. Please just, patient, but again, there's a sense of urgency. So don't sit on your laurels. If it really means a lot to you, breathing oxygen, well, then this is for you, because apparently oxygen isn't free anymore.
Yes.
And, it shouldn't be free. We can talk more about this, but please, guys, if you don't do it for yourself, do it for the others, do it for us, do it for, humanity. Try to do something not for yourself for once, and, just pay it forward, and I promise you'll get it back a millionfold. Guaranteed.
All right.
Thanks, Tara. Thank you, Three Sisters.
Yes.
Gracias por la invitación, gracias Terra, gracias Three Sisters. Por favor, ayuden a esta causa, ayuden a los pueblos indígenas. Dependemos de ellos para la reforestación. Gracias y bienvenidos a Ecopower International. Gracias.
Tara.
Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right.
Thanks.
Take care.